Welcome to Revenge Threads. I'm really curious, what country are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I always knew the day would come when my father wouldn't be there to answer my 7:30 a.m. call. What I didn't expect was the email waiting in my inbox instead. Clear out your desk by end of business. HR will process your offboarding. No signature. No warmth. Just corporate frostbite from a company I had poured 5 years into. 5 years of overtime, travel, holidays cut short, birthdays celebrated via Zoom from hotel rooms. And now? A single cold sentence. It didn't even mention my name. Just instructions, like I was a printer someone ordered to be recycled. I stared at the screen. My name is Morgan Ellis, and until 4 minutes ago I was the senior project lead at Brightspan Logistics, the highest performing team in the Pacific Northwest Division. At 33, I wasn't just leading projects, I was building them. My team, my process, my systems. All of it. From scratch. I hadn't cried yet. Not at the funeral. Not in front of my little sister when she collapsed at Dad's grave. Not when I gave the eulogy. But sitting at my desk, watching that blinking cursor mock me beneath the email header, I felt something crack. 3 days. That's how long I had taken to bury the man who raised me after my mom walked out. 3 approved days of bereavement leave. And now I was being thrown out like a bad Q4 report. I reached for my mouse with a hand that didn't feel like mine and forwarded the email to my personal account. Not because I planned to sue, at least not yet, but because I needed proof that I wasn't imagining the sheer heartlessness of it all. Then I shut down my work laptop, pulled out a small box from under my desk, and began packing. The cactus Elijah gave me last Christmas, still alive, shockingly. A Polaroid of our team at the annual retreat in Bend. Sticky notes with half-sketched ideas that would never see implementation now. And the note from Ray, the intern I mentored last spring. Thanks for believing in me when no one else did. Everything I touched seemed to hum with memory, like I was packing up the remains of something that once mattered. By the time 8:30 rolled around and others began trickling in, my desk was half empty. I didn't want to make a scene. But apparently the scene was coming to me. Morgan? It was Tasha from marketing. Her eyes widened when she saw the box. You're leaving? I forced a polite smile. Correction, I've been asked to leave. Wait, what? Why? You just finished the Holborn restructure, your name's still on the weekly leadership memo. I shrugged. Apparently, taking 3 days off for a funeral is unprofessional now. Her mouth dropped open, and she glanced around like the walls might whisper some explanation. Then came Dylan, then Ray, then Amira, all with the same shocked expression, all asking the same questions I didn't feel like answering. I didn't need their sympathy, I needed space. And of course, right when the tension started settling in, he showed up. Clark Middleton. My direct supervisor. The one who'd smiled through his teeth while approving my leave. The one who had apparently greenlit my termination the day after I buried my father. He didn't look guilty. He looked irritated. I asked HR to handle this privately, he said with a half sigh, as if my presence offended the sanctity of his inbox. I didn't realize losing a parent was considered performance negligence now, I replied, taping the top of my box closed. Clark stepped closer, lowering his voice. Morgan, let's not escalate this. Business is business. And Brightspan is moving in a direction that requires people who understand sacrifice. I buried my father, Clark. Not exactly a beach weekend. That tone isn't helping, he snapped. I stepped forward, toe-to-toe with the man who used to call me his anchor during department reviews. You think I care about tone after this? I said, cold and clear. Here's mine, you'll regret this. Not today. Maybe not next week. But eventually. He flinched slightly, just enough for me to see the fear behind his composure. I picked up my box. And when that day comes, I want you to remember, you started this. I didn't slam the door on my way out. I wanted to. God, I wanted to kick it off its hinges. But I didn't. Because Clark Middleton expected a meltdown. He was probably already rehearsing his version of the story in his head, she became emotional, disruptive, not a team player. No, he wasn't going to get that from me. I walked out of Brightspan Logistics carrying my life in a cardboard box, head high, spine straighter than it had ever been in that building. The September air hit me with crisp clarity. Boise smelled like a new beginning that morning, pine and asphalt and something sharper underneath. I placed my box in the back seat, climbed into the driver's seat and just sat. 3 minutes passed. Then my phone buzzed. Elijah, you okay? Please tell me this is a mistake. Then another. Amira, they're saying you quit. That you weren't up for the new direction. And then a dozen more. The lies had already started spinning. I had no doubt Clark had sent a carefully worded internal memo by now, full of corporate poetry about strategic refocusing and restructuring for alignment. But the truth? The truth was a bullet to the chest. They fired me for mourning. And worse, they thought I'd go quietly. I scrolled through the messages, heart pounding, heat rising under my skin. This wasn't just about me anymore. My team deserved better. Hell, they deserved the truth. I pulled up my photos, found the screenshot of the termination email and hit share, not to Twitter, not to LinkedIn, but to a private group chat I had created with my core team months ago. I named it the Engine Room, back when we all joked about being the ones who actually kept the company running. I added a caption. Thought y'all should see what really happened. No filter. No BS. And then I hit send. I didn't even lock my phone before it started blowing up again. Dylan. Holy shit. He really did you dirty. Ray. I knew something smelled weird when Clark was whispering with upper management all morning. Amira. Tell us what you need. We've got your back. Support came pouring in. Not just words, but anger, real rage, the kind that doesn't come from coworkers, but from family. Because that's what we had been. I didn't just lead those people. I fought for them. But I had no idea what the next step was, until the next call came in. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I remembered who had messaged me months ago asking if I'd ever consider a change. Morgan? It's Carter Donovan. From Nextware Freight. Just the name made my heartbeat change tempo. Nextware was Brightspan's biggest competitor on the West Coast. Leaner, faster, more modern, and dangerously hungry. I heard what happened. Of course he had. Our industry was small. Gossip traveled faster than cargo. Sorry you had to hear about it like that, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Carter didn't waste time. We've wanted you for a while. This just speeds things up. I can make an offer by Monday. I leaned back in my seat. I signed a non-compete. He snorted. So did half my exec team. It's unenforceable trash unless you try to poach their clients or employees. Funny he should mention that. I'm not ready to say yes, I said slowly. But I'll hear you out. Meet me tomorrow at the hatch, 9 a.m. I'll have the papers. I hung up and stared at the phone. Poaching? No. I wasn't poaching anyone. But if Brightspan was going to toss me out for grieving and then lie about it? Then hell yes, I was going to compete. The next morning, I showed up to the hatch in jeans, a blazer, and boots that meant business. Carter was already there with a folder on the table and 2 black coffees. You look better than someone who just got canned, he said with a half grin. Maybe because I finally slept without checking Slack at 2 a.m. We talked for 40 minutes. Not just about salary and title, though both were better than anything Brightspan ever offered me, but about vision. Carter didn't just want a senior project manager. He wanted a director. Someone to build a team, not inherit one. We're expanding through Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, he explained. And frankly, we don't have anyone who knows this region like you. Would I get to bring in my own team? Carter raised a brow. You have people in mind? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He slid the folder toward me. You get full hiring autonomy. Anyone who applies gets top consideration if you vouch for them. I left the meeting with a formal offer in hand. 6 figures. 401k, full relocation support if I wanted it. And a blank canvas. That afternoon, I sat down with my laptop and stared at the empty screen. I thought about everything Brightspan took from me. But I also thought about what I still had. Loyalty. Talent. A team that trusted me. They deserved a workplace that wouldn't punish them for being human. A company that wouldn't treat them like numbers. And so I began writing an email of my own. Not to Clark. Not to HR. But to every single person I believed in. Subject line: You deserve better. By the time I hit send on the email, my hands were trembling. Not out of fear, not anymore. But because I knew the weight of what I'd just done. I'd thrown a match back over my shoulder, and if Brightspan wanted to pretend nothing happened, they'd now have to walk through the flames to prove it. Within 10 minutes, replies started rolling in. Dylan. I'm in. Just say the word. Amira. Whatever you're building, I want to be a part of it. Brightspan can go to hell. Luis. Already working on my resume. Let's burn it down. It was like pressing play on something I didn't realize I'd been composing in my head for months. A movement. A quiet revolt. But not everyone responded immediately. Ray, our IT lead, was silent. So was Elijah, who had a kid on the way and might not be able to risk the unknown. I didn't blame them yet. Not everyone can leap without a parachute. But I also knew the longer they stayed, the more they'd suffocate. The next morning, I was awakened by a notification, LinkedIn. Jason Tanner, a mid-level analyst at Brightspan, had posted a cryptic update. Watching great leaders get tossed aside while mediocrity climbs the ladder. Corporate loyalty is a fairy tale. The comments underneath? Explosive. Some subtle, some not. The real ones know who you're talking about. It's like a ghost town in there without Morgan. Brightspan's HR just took an L. It was going viral. By lunch, someone had shared the original email, yes, that email on Reddit. R/work reform picked it up, and then it spread like wildfire. Fired for going to my dad's funeral. That was the headline. And underneath, the truth. My name wasn't listed, but anyone from the industry would recognize the story. And they did. I received 3 more job offers that afternoon. One from a logistics startup in Austin. Another from a sustainability-focused firm in Seattle. But I didn't need offers. I already had opportunity. What I needed now was a team. So I began the real work. I spent the next 2 days crafting onboarding packets, job descriptions, organizational flows. If I was going to bring people with me, they needed a clear vision. I wasn't building a refuge. I was building a machine that moved better than anything Brightspan ever assembled. And I wasn't just hiring for the sake of loyalty. I needed the right ones. People who could adapt, pivot, innovate. People who could throw out the old rulebook and write a new one from scratch. Ray finally called me that Thursday night. Hey, he said. Quiet. I thought you disappeared. I've been thinking. That's dangerous. He laughed, but it was hollow. They made me reformat your old server directory today. Did you? No. I backed it up. External. It's yours if you want it. I paused. You sure? I watched what they did to you, Morgan. And I let it happen. I kept my head down. I'm done doing that. He didn't even ask if I had a place for him. He just said, I'll follow your lead. I closed my eyes, letting that sink in. Not because I needed revenge, but because I was finally being seen. The final straw came Friday afternoon. Carter forwarded me an internal memo from Brightspan that had leaked. An emergency meeting. An announcement that unauthorized retention of proprietary knowledge and influence of current employees by former staff will be treated as a breach of legal obligation. It wasn't just petty. It was a warning shot. One they fired too late. Because the truth was, the team wasn't being poached. They were escaping. I didn't call Carter. I didn't need to. He called me. They're scared. Good. What do you want to do? I stood at my kitchen counter, sipping coffee that had gone cold, staring out at the river behind my apartment. Make room for 7 desks, I said. 7? I smiled. For now. I walked into our new office for the first time on a crisp Monday morning. It wasn't glamorous. Second floor of a refurbished warehouse space. No logo on the wall. No slick front desk or branded coffee cups. Just sunlight pouring in through high windows and the faint echo of possibility in every corner. I dropped my keys on the empty desk and stood in the middle of the room. This was ours now. Carter arrived 15 minutes later, 2 coffees in hand, both terrible, I could smell it. First day at war, he said, handing me one. I thought we were building something. He smirked. Same thing. That week was chaos, but the kind of chaos you learn to love, unboxing equipment, writing our values on a whiteboard, deciding how we'd measure success, not just profit. What mattered to us was impact, not legacy. Legacy was what people like Dan clung to, rusted metal dressed as gold. My phone buzzed. A text from Ray. Your files are safe. Encryption's up. I've also been quietly disabling access for systems I know they can't manage without me. If they want to rebuild, they'll have to start from scratch. I didn't reply. Not yet. Ray didn't need a thank you, he needed to see what came next. Wednesday, Dylan arrived, followed by Amira and Luis. Each had left Brightspan within 48 hours of one another. The severance they were offered wasn't even insulting, it was desperate. I told them I was leaving to join a company that actually values its people, Amira said, hanging her coat on a crooked wall hook. They didn't even ask which one. Luis tossed his resignation letter on my desk and said, "That's what loyalty to the wrong people looks like, useless." I didn't have a welcome speech prepared. So instead, I wrote one word on the whiteboard behind me. Build. That was our mantra now. It didn't take long for word to spread. 3 days after our website launched, simple, 1-page, coming soon, Brightspan sent a cease and desist to our hosting provider, claiming trademark infringement. The name of our new company? Everstead. Not similar. Not even close. They were grasping at smoke. And losing. We weren't poaching. We weren't stealing. We were outgrowing. The day Elijah walked in, everything felt full circle. He didn't say anything at first. Just dropped his backpack at an empty desk, took a long breath and looked at me. I didn't think I could do it, he said. Do what? Leave. Say no. Walk away from the safety net. And now? He smiled. This net feels safer. Friday afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. Morgan. It was Dan. There was silence. Like he was chewing glass. You're making things harder than they need to be. That's funny. So did your email. You're really going to throw away everything we built? For what? A warehouse office and a startup dream? No, I said. I'm going to build what you never could. He scoffed. Your team won't last. They followed you because they're angry. That doesn't last. They didn't follow me out of anger, Dan. They followed me because I gave them something you never did. What's that? I didn't miss a beat. Respect. I hung up. That weekend, we closed our first contract. Not a major one, a regional fulfillment firm looking to scale. But they said the words that made all the sleepless nights worth it. We came to Everstead because we heard how you treat your people. We want to be part of that. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was reclamation. Of purpose. Of dignity. Of momentum. And we were just getting started. By the end of the first month, the office had a pulse. Not in the fluorescent buzzkill kind of way Brightspan had, but in the way that said, people are thriving here. We had laughter bouncing off the brick walls. Coffee brewed too strong. Midnight pizzas during debugging sessions. Meetings that didn't feel like punishment. And the kind of honesty in conversations that comes only when people trust they won't get burned for being human. But Brightspan wasn't done with us. On a rainy Tuesday morning, I walked in and found Dylan already there, staring at his screen with the kind of expression that made my stomach drop. "They filed an injunction," he said. I blinked. "What?" "They're claiming we violated our non-competes. That we used proprietary knowledge. They want a restraining order to stop us from doing any client work until the court reviews everything." I closed my eyes for half a second. Jesus. "They're scared," Dylan added. "That's all this is." He was right. We'd quietly signed 2 more clients in the logistics sector, small, but Brightspan noticed. Especially when one of them terminated their contract with them early, citing poor communication and outdated tech. We hadn't even pitched them. They'd come to us. I met with our lawyer that afternoon, a woman named Ruth Delgado. Late 40s, fierce eyes, wore her hair in a twist so tight it could cut glass. She read the filing silently, then looked up and said, "They've got nothing." "But can they slow us down?" "Oh, absolutely," she said. "That's what this is, death by 1,000 paper cuts. They want you to bleed money and time." "They won't win, though?" "They'll lose. Eventually. But they're hoping you run out of steam first." I leaned back. They were trying to drain us. But they didn't understand I'd already been drained. Fired for grieving. Tossed aside like I never mattered. They thought I'd fold? They clearly forgot who they were dealing with. The next morning, I held an emergency all-hands meeting. We sat in folding chairs in a half-painted conference room with one light bulb flickering over us like a joke. I laid it out. The lawsuit. The delay it might cause. The possibility that things might get tight for a bit. Nobody flinched. Veronica raised her hand. "Can I ask something?" "Of course." "If we win, when we win, will we have the right to tell the whole damn world what they did?" I smiled. "Hell yes." "Then I'm all in." Dylan clapped. Luis nodded. Amira said, "They don't get to scare us out of something we've earned." That's when I knew they didn't just believe in the mission. They believed in each other. 2 days later, I got a call from a journalist. "Local tech beat," said someone from Brightspan had anonymously leaked that I was violating contract law and assembling a shadow company. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. "No comment," I said. "But if you want a story, come visit our office. You'll see what we're building." He did. Wrote a piece titled, "From Fired to Fearless, the Woman Brightspan Should Never Have Let Go." It blew up. The comments section? Full of former Brightspan employees. Clients. Interns. People who had seen behind the curtain. They weren't defending Brightspan. They were cheering for us. Ray emailed me that night. Subject line, "This war's already over." Body, "They just don't know it yet." He attached a photo. It was a screenshot from Brightspan's internal Slack. A senior project manager had announced they were resigning to pursue more ethical leadership elsewhere. 3 team members replied with variations of same. The real shift happened when Vertex reached out. Yes, that Vertex. The company Brightspan had lost multiple bids to in recent years. The company I'd admired when I was still under Dan's thumb. Their VP of strategy, a sharp guy named Nolan, messaged me on LinkedIn. "Let's grab coffee. I think we can help each other." He wasn't offering a job. He was offering a partnership. That Friday, we toasted with cheap champagne and paper cups. "To the team," I said. "To the truth," said Luis. Veronica raised her cup high. "And to making sure every person who ever got fired for doing the right thing gets the last word." We drank. We laughed. And as the storm outside faded into a warm spring night, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about rewriting the rules. The Monday after the article dropped, our inboxes exploded. Startups. Mid-tier logistics firms. even one international supply chain company in Singapore. All of them with one question. Can you help us do what you did for Wilson Freight? It was surreal. Just 6 weeks ago, I had stood outside Brightspan with a cardboard box, feeling like my career had shattered in the rain. Now, I was the name people were whispering in boardrooms. But with growth came new pressure. We had 4 new client contracts under review. Payroll was stretching thin. My team was running at 120%, and we were still arguing over which desk chairs we could afford. That's when Vertex came back into the picture, this time not with just a coffee invite, but with a formal proposal. Nolan sat across from me in a sleek downtown restaurant, sliding a folder across the table like he was in a movie. Joint venture, he said. You keep your autonomy. We provide capital, office space, and technical infrastructure. You expand faster. We get a minority stake. I opened the folder. Terms that didn't insult my intelligence. Valuation that made my throat tighten. How many other offers like this do you give out? I asked, eyebrows raised. Nolan grinned. Just this one. And only to you. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I stood up, walked to the window, and stared down at the city lights. For the first time, I wasn't thinking like a scrappy founder trying to survive. I was thinking like a leader with leverage. I called an emergency team meeting that night. Everyone looked exhausted, but curious. I laid out the offer. Veronica was the first to speak. What's the catch? They'd own 22% of the company. No interference unless we tank the brand or break the law. And you'd still be CEO? Luis asked. Yes. Silence. Then Jason leaned back, cracked his knuckles, and said, So, we get better chairs? Laughter erupted. But it wasn't just about chairs. It was about stability. Resources. Taking our rebellion and turning it into a revolution. I nodded. We vote in the morning. We signed the deal on a Thursday. By Friday, the new office keys were in my hand. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Ergonomic chairs. Soundproof meeting rooms. A proper kitchen that didn't smell like microwave popcorn and sadness. I watched my team walk in one by one, wide-eyed, stunned, hopeful. Jason dropped his backpack and said, Are we legit now? Veronica elbowed him. We've always been legit. We're just finally funded. But Brightspan wasn't done trying to claw back control. Dan resurfaced, not at Brightspan but with a startup of his own. We caught wind of it when Amira forwarded a LinkedIn post. Proud to announce the launch of Blue River Analytics, helping logistics firms thrive in uncertain times. Below that? A list of core values. Number 1. Empathy and leadership. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Luis muttered, Dan wouldn't know empathy if it hit him with a clipboard. But I wasn't mad. Let him copy us. Let him try. The industry already knew which side had heart and which one had hashtags. 2 weeks later, we landed a contract that Brightspan had been gunning for all year. I found out when Paula, yes, that Paula, emailed me. Subject line, thought you'd appreciate this. Attached was a screenshot from an internal Brightspan memo. Due to recent shifts in client loyalty, we will reevaluate our leadership strategies immediately. I replied with one word, good. By the end of the quarter, we had tripled revenue. Jason ran onboarding for 5 new hires. Veronica built an entirely new client relations system from scratch. Even Kayla, once too shy to speak up, pitched a client and closed them solo. Our revenge wasn't in lawsuits. It wasn't in leaked memos or angry tweets. Our revenge was results. And the world was watching. By the start of spring, something had shifted, not just in our company but in the entire industry. We weren't a whisper anymore. We were a wave. Clients weren't just coming to us for better logistics. They were coming because they wanted to be part of what we stood for. Respect. Integrity. Human damn decency. I'd wake up to emails from regional managers, HR officers, even interns saying, "We read your story. We wish our company operated like yours." Some of them were even from inside Brightspan. One message hit harder than the rest. It was from Lila, the young admin assistant I had once mentored. "You were the only one who ever made me feel seen there," she wrote. "Since you left, the office feels cold. Like everyone's waiting for the next bad email. I'm planning my exit. Just thought you should know, your silence made more noise than Dan's speeches ever did." I didn't cry, but I sat with that one for a long time. Sometimes silence is the sharpest blade. Meanwhile, Dan wasn't faring so well. His empathy-first startup? Already floundering. Rumors swirled, late payroll, investors pulling out, clients ghosting them after realizing who was behind the curtain. Turns out you can't build a future on buzzwords and bullshit. One of his former hires, who secretly applied to us, told us Dan tried mimicking our team model, but without trust it crumbled. His people were terrified of being too human, she said. They smiled too wide. Agreed too quickly. It felt like a hostage situation with branding. Ouch. Then came the cherry on top. Brightspan officially shut down our former department. No public announcement. No fond farewell. Just a quiet memo buried deep in a Monday update. Logistics Operations West is being restructured indefinitely. Jason found it and printed it out. He taped it to our office fridge like it was a championship banner. We didn't cheer. We didn't gloat. We just nodded, the kind of nod that says, "Damn right." But not everything was perfect. With growth came growing pains. We hit deadlines that stretched us thin. New hires clashed with old rhythms. I caught myself slipping back into bad habits, staying late, micromanaging, forgetting to breathe. Veronica pulled me aside one night. "You built this so we wouldn't become Brightspan," she said. "So don't turn into the people we left." That hit hard. She was right. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about creating something better. Not just for us, but for everyone who'd ever been discarded for being human. So I reset. We brought in a leadership coach. We invested in wellness stipends. We started a Friday ritual, Failures of the Week, where we'd share what we screwed up and what we learned. It changed everything. People opened up. Trust deepened. Our retention rate? Off the charts. Our client satisfaction? Highest in the sector. Even the board from Vertex started sending their own executives to observe our model. We weren't the rebels anymore. We were the standard. And then the industry awards rolled in. I was named top female executive in operations by West Supply Weekly. Veronica snagged a spot on the top 40 under 40 Yingcun client engagement. Jason? He started giving talks at local business schools about ethical leadership in logistics. And the press? They called us the Exodus team. A nickname that stuck. We didn't correct them. We had exited the old world of fear and control. We had entered something freer. Fiercer. Kinda. And just when I thought the universe had played all its cards, a message came in from someone unexpected. Paula. The regional manager who once offered me my job back, now working for a nonprofit leadership group. She wanted me to speak at their next summit. Topic? How to lose your best people and how not to. I accepted. With one condition. Dan would be in the audience. The conference was held at a sleek glass-paneled venue in downtown Seattle, the kind of place where million-dollar deals were whispered over gourmet coffee and lanyards had more clout than job titles. I arrived early. Not because I was nervous, but because I wanted to feel the place. The energy. The tension. The people walking in with notepads and laptops, expecting another bland talk about synergy or quarterly KPIs. They weren't ready for what I was about to give them. The audience was packed. Executives from Fortune 500s. HR reps with anxious eyes. founders still clinging to the belief that ping pong tables meant they had culture. And right there, near the middle row, Dan. He hadn't aged well. His once confident posture now slightly slouched. That too-tight tie and the relaxed smirk told me everything. He wasn't there for redemption. He was there because he had to be. His latest venture? Drowning. He needed this talk like a lifeline. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. When they called my name, the applause was polite. Professional. They didn't know me yet. But 5 minutes in, the tone shifted. I told them everything. How I gave 5 years of loyalty. Built a record-breaking team. Stayed late. Skipped holidays. Mentored half the damn department. And how I was fired. By email. 3 days after burying my father. The room went silent. You could feel the discomfort settling into the seats like smoke. I let it linger. Then I smiled. Best thing that ever happened to me. I walked them through the timeline. From that cold morning with a cardboard box, to the phone call with Hank Fleming, to the formation of what they now knew as the Exodus team. How we rebuilt from nothing. Not with funding. But with trust. How 7 people walked out not for money, but for meaning. And how within a year, we'd become the benchmark that companies like theirs were now desperately trying to reverse engineer. Then I turned to the heart of it. What does it take to lose your best people? Silence. I clicked to the next slide. Big, bold letters. Ignoring their humanity. I heard someone gasp. I kept going. Your top performers don't leave because of money. They leave because you make them feel small. Replaceable. Silenced. Slide change. The moment someone grieves and you punish them for it, they will never trust you again. Slide change. And if they were great, others will follow. I could see Dan shift in his seat. Hands clasped tight. Eyes darting. Reality sinking in. I ended with a story. About the cactus plant. How Barbara Kent had mailed it to me, still alive. Still growing. Some things survive even after you bury them. Some things thrive. Applause erupted. But this time it wasn't polite. It was real. Raw. From the people who saw themselves in my story. Who maybe were Holly Petersons, just waiting for permission to stand up. Afterward, people lined up. CEOs, interns, managers, and mid-level HR warriors. Your story changed how I see my team. You reminded me why I started this career. Can I bring you in to talk to our board? Dan didn't approach me. But I saw him watching. And that was enough. His empire had been built on fear. Mine was built on loyalty. One crumbles. The other multiplies. Later that evening, I stepped out onto the hotel balcony. Seattle's skyline sparkled. My phone buzzed. A message from Gabriella. We just landed the 3rd Hernandez account. Told you they'd come back. I laughed. We weren't just getting even. We were getting ahead. The ripple effect was faster than I expected. By the end of the week following the summit, 3 more Summit Edge clients had made contact through Vertex. Some were subtle, a curious inquiry about switching vendors. Others were more pointed. Are you the Holly that spoke in Seattle? We'd like to schedule a meeting. Privately. It was happening. Not revenge through lawsuits. Not petty games. But through migration. Clients didn't want Summit Edge anymore. They wanted us. Meanwhile, the stories started leaking. First, it was just gossip on industry forums, anonymous posts about unethical layoffs and toxic management styles. But then someone, likely someone from my old team, shared Dan's infamous email. The one that fired me for failing to prioritize work. It went viral. LinkedIn. Reddit. Even Twitter. A recruiter I knew texted me a meme of it with the caption, New poster child for what not to do. Dan's name wasn't even attached, but people knew. Because everyone has their own version of that boss. Cold. Detached. Unforgiving. Dan had just become the universal face for all of them. I didn't speak out. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. Sometimes silence screams louder than speeches. Hank called me into his office one morning. He looked up from his laptop with an unreadable expression. Summit Edge just announced a strategic restructuring. I raised an eyebrow. That's what they're calling it? They're shutting down the Northwest branch. Just like that. The office I used to walk into at 7 a.m. every Monday? Gone. The space where we'd built the most efficient division in the company? Gone. Dan? No official word. But insiders said he'd been let go quietly. With no severance. No party. Just an exit card and a damaged name. I thought I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. I just felt still. Steady. Like the river had done its work, and now, finally, the water was calm. I gathered the team in our new boardroom. Jason had just finished onboarding 2 junior analysts. Gabriella had launched a pilot system that cut processing time by 20%. Luis was negotiating a logistics partnership in Oregon. We sat around the glass table and I gave them the news. Summit Edge is out of the Northwest. Effective immediately. They didn't cheer. They didn't laugh. They just sat back and breathed. Jason muttered, "Damn." Veronica whispered, "Good." Then Diane raised her glass of coffee and said, "To all the people who think we were the mistake. We didn't build our culture on hate for what we'd lost. We built it on respect for what we'd become. We had each other. And we had something no one could poach or manufacture. Trust." A week later, I received an anonymous package at the office. Inside? A gold pen. The kind Dan used to fidget with in every meeting. No note. Just the pen. I stared at it for a while. Then I dropped it in the trash. 6 months after the collapse of Summit Edge's Northwest Division, we'd grown from one regional team into the backbone of Vertex's expansion model. I was no longer just the director of operations. I'd been promoted to senior VP of strategy, with oversight across multiple territories. But titles didn't matter to me anymore. What mattered was that we'd built something honest. Something human. And most importantly, something ours. On a cloudy Wednesday, I walked into the break room to find Ethan pouring coffee into a mug that said, "Holly's Rebels." It had become a running joke around the office, part tribute, part rebellion. "New recruits are calling us legends," he said with a smirk. "Let's try not to let it go to our heads," I replied. But I knew what he meant. What we survived wasn't just mistreatment, it was erasure. They tried to delete us for grieving. And now? Now we were setting the standard. Veronica had just closed a massive account, a contract that used to belong to Summit Edge. Jason's division led a campaign that got mentioned in a logistics trade magazine. Gabriella was giving keynote presentations on operational automation. My people weren't just doing well. They were thriving. One afternoon, I received a message from Barbara Kent, the former HR manager at Summit Edge. Subject: Thought you should know. She'd attached a screenshot of a company memo from Meridian Freight, the corporation that had quietly acquired Summit Edge's assets. It read, "Effective immediately, all former Summit Edge employees are barred from rehire. Our new operational structure will prioritize ethics, wellness, and leadership accountability." Below it, a list of names, including Dan Weaver, marked "Do Not Hire." Justice didn't always come in courtrooms. Sometimes it came in whispers, memos, and blacklists. That same week, Paula McCormick, once Summit Edge's regional manager, reached out again. She now worked as a consultant helping companies restructure toxic departments. "I share your story in every seminar," she admitted over coffee. "Not as gossip, but as proof." Proof of what? I asked. That culture is everything, she said. And people don't leave companies, they leave bad leaders. She paused, then added, Your silence did more damage than a lawsuit ever could. I just smiled. We had rebuilt. Not out of vengeance. Out of necessity. Out of conviction. The kind that's forged when you stand in front of something broken and decide to start again, from scratch, with your own two hands. 1 year to the day after I was terminated, my team surprised me with a plaque that read, For the rock who stood still while the river raged. We hung it in the main conference room. Every time I walked by, I thought of my dad. Of those mornings by the river. Of his quiet voice saying, Let the current pass, Holly girl. Stay steady. Stay true. The greatest revenge I ever got wasn't against Dan Weaver. It wasn't even against Summit Edge. It was against the system that said we were replaceable. That empathy was a weakness. That grief made us unreliable. I proved them wrong, not with fire, but with roots. And from those roots, something unstoppable grew.